Dr. Dave Jensen.
All right, well, obviously a lot of familiar faces. It's definitely good to see everybody, and some people I haven't met. Certainly like to thank Todd for inviting me. This is always good to kind of educate and empower people. I'll be kind of moving around. We'll make it fairly rapid. You know, I got to feed my ADD and probably feed everybody else's ADD as well, so we can kind of keep it moving along a little bit. We were talking about my credentials. You know, I'm a graduate of the University of Minnesota, Golden Gopher. Went to school down in Dallas, Texas, and the one thing I was going to talk about on that is, you know, there's 3 primary care physicians, an MD, a DO, and a DC. You know, the good joke that everybody likes to say is, well, I'm going to go to the real doctor, and I'm going to go, you know, get whatever done by the real doctor. Okay, well, we're all 3 primary docs, and a lot of people don't understand what a DO is as well. A DO is a doctor of osteopathic medicine, so they're kind of in between a medical doctor and a chiropractor. They work in the natural world, and they work in the medical world, pharmacological world. As he alluded to, diplomated sports medicine since 2002. It allows me to travel if I have to go to you know, the Olympic Games coming up this next year, or if it's in a foreign country, it gives me credentialing to be able to work in that country legally on athletes of all nations and all countries. And I'm currently working on my CSCS for my Olympic credentialing as well. This will give me the highest level of Olympic credentialing I can get, which is Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. It's mainly about sports performance and nutrition and lifting abilities and all the technical terms that kind of go along with it. One thing that I always like to bring up, it's kind of hard to see maybe up here, but a lot of people don't understand the difference in education between chiropractors and medical doctors, but you can kind of see, if you can see the numbers of hours, there's a lot of different things that you can see that chiropractors get more education in, and then the medical world gets more education in. As in, like anatomy, physiology, we get a little bit more than the medical world does. They obviously do more in the pharmacology, they do more in the psychology and psychiatry, they do quite a bit more in pathology. So a lot of differences in those aspects, but you got to realize that, you know, obviously coming from the natural world, we're working more with your nutrition basis. We're working more with the structure and function of the body. So there's your difference in education. But a lot of people really, I have a chart like this up in my office. A lot of people like to kind of check it out because they don't really realize that at the end of the day, we actually have more clinical hours, not clinical hours, I'm sorry, more classroom hours than they do on that deal, where they do a lot of residencies and internships and certainly working with the pharmacological world. These are some of the things I've worked with over the time. You know, I worked with the Dallas Cowboys, Miami Dolphins, the 49ers. I frequently have to go over to Colorado Springs and work, do my time, so to speak, at the Olympic Training Center. I spend a week at a time or 2 weeks at a time when they have all their athletes there, and it's really kind of prime time. Started doing Olympics in '96 at the Atlanta Games. Now I've done a bunch of winners. Been all the X Games here, been one of the primary care docs at that aspect. World Cup skiing, and those of us who remember the 24 Hours of Aspen, I worked with that whole aspect, you know, really missed that event. And then I was with the AVP, you know, during the summers off from football, I would work with the Aspen, or the volleyball professionals. Kind of hard to see this slide a little bit. But basically, you know, the Wynn Health Institute, what we have going on is integrative healthcare. So it's not that I'm not about medicine, because I certainly am. There's a lot of things that medicine does great, and there's a lot of things that alternative does very well as well. And it's the combination of both of those that's really the key. I always talk about the 3 C's, not the 1 C. It's all about cooperation, communication, and collaboration, not competition. The healthcare model should really have no competition. We always have to work together. We always have to communicate and empower each other. So I always talk to the orthos and back and forth and physical therapists, and it's not like there's any bridging, even though there's some political kind of ramifications, we'll call it, that still go on that deal. And then I always talk about healthcare is really truly about healthcare. It's not about sickness care. A lot of our model, especially in the insurance industry and especially in the hospital world, is all based in the sickness care aspect. And what really is, that's the deal. They wait until you're sick, then they actually try to attack it and fix it and change it up. Whereas if we just think a little bit more about health care throughout our whole life versus waiting for that sickness to kind of happen, and then we have to jump into the pool and kind of get after it. One of my favorites, Thomas Edison, I read lots of books, but he's one of my favorites. The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest in his or her patient in the care of human frame, in the proper diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. You think how profound that was even back then, but you think about it, medicine was really only about 100 to 150 years old. Whereas in manipulation medicine or Chinese medicine is a couple thousand years old, 3,000, 4,000 years old. So we throw it out because this new great technologies have kind of taken over, and so that is like our main precedence in our life. I'm going to go into a little bit more elaboration on this. Actually, yep, proper diet. Main thing, I kind of just made my own little food pyramid because I changed things up a little bit from what the AMA and those guys talk about. But we have our organic fruits and veggies. We go into our meats, grains, proteins, all of those things. My new big deal that I'm doing is I have a place called MyRemedyShop.com. And what it is a place where you can educate and empower yourself to understand what's going on with your own body. It's going to be like a WebMD, but for alternative healthcare. We'll actually you'll type in an ailment, say it's psoriasis or arthritis or whatever it is, and I'll give you the medical answer. I'm going to give you the alternative answer. I'm going to give you the Chinese medicine answer, and I'm going to give you my answer. And why all of that? So that you can make your own informed decision and you can become educated in one place versus, in our world we live in today, I looked on the web and oh my God, I found out I got cancer. Or oh my God, I got some crazy thing, right? One place where you can actually go and get educated and understand what is really going on and what you can do about it. And so at this place, you'll be able to actually get recommendations, and I'll sell nutrient-based kind of goods that are all kind of doctor's grade nutraceuticals is the way we talk about it. So you'll be able to actually get recommendations on there and things like that. I can't diagnose on the web. I can't give you a full-on, kind of treatment protocol, but it certainly educates you and empowers you to make your own decisions. So that's one thing I'm doing in the diet-based and kind of prevention-based. Cause and prevention. Obviously, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We've all heard that one, and it's always such a great thing to think about. But we realize that it's what we ingest and how we live our lives that regulates our outcomes towards the finish line. And a lot of us run hard, and then all of a sudden kind of hit the wall, and we go, man, we better start fixing some stuff. And then we play big-time catch-up versus playing that game most of our lives. I've been brought up with chiropractic since I was, days old. I was adjusted. I've been only given nutrients. I've really never been given any drugs of any sort. I never got antibiotics. Things like that were never in my realm. So I didn't really understand why all these other people were doing it elsewhere. It's just the way my parents brought me up. And then obviously proper checkups with both allopathic and natural-based practitioners. Therefore, again, getting yourself informed and getting a balanced kind of approach to the aspect. And typically, most of us in Aspen have plenty of exercise. But, action begets action, and idle bodies become idle bodies, right? So that's a big part of it. Technology. One of the awesome things that I have right now is this spinal decompression unit. Some have seen it. A few people have been on it in here, but a couple people. This is one way that I can actually get disc herniations and ruptures and stenosis and all these things to start to come apart and to open up. This chair, you get all kind of belted into it. It's like you're getting rocket blasted into outer space is what it kind of feels like. But what the deal is, it actually feels very good. It actually decompresses the spine, gets the spine to open back up. As we age, degeneration happens, and compression happens, and disc bulges happen. So in that regard, we want to start to get that stuff to open up. So my number one patient that I work on, even I had 2 this morning already, were failed back surgeries. One of them was 2 failed back surgeries. One had only gone through 1. And we start to get that to open up, and we actually save them on that deal. The only thing that's contraindicated is if people have metal in their back from surgeries. Obviously, I can't pull them because it will pull the screws out of the bone, things like that, so not good. But anybody who hasn't been invasively worked on gets that spinal decompression, and it opens them up big time. Opens up their pelvis and their lower body. Spinal screenings, we do vascular testing. We can tell how well your vascular system works and opens up. And as we're babies, that vascular system is working, opened up big time. It can open and close. As we go up a hill, it opens up. When we're resting, it closes down. But as we age, our vascular system gets more and more rigid, just like everything does. So the one thing that we want to do is feed that system more than just give it Lipitor and things like that are going to make it more rigid. We want to get it to open up. So just like in the hospital, they do EKGs and all those aspects, this tests the resiliency of your veins and arteries and gives you a printout that you can take to a cardiologist, and they're like, oh my God, where'd you get this? And it's all in their terms, all in their graphics, but it works very well. Antioxidant testing. We can tell how well your body's reacting by a machine that you blow into, and it tells how many alkaloids are kicking off your body. If any of us have been, it's kind of a weird analogy, but been around somebody who's dying, they have kind of a sweet, off-gassing aroma out of their body, and that is ketosis or alkalosis. That means lots of cells are dying fast, and it gets that sweet aroma. Well, that's what it measures. So all of us, that's happening at all times, and it accelerates as we get older. So I can test how well your body's dealing and how fast it's oxidizing or antioxidizing. There's a number of different machines. She just mentioned one over here. It's called the Farmanex. It's a biophotonic scanner. It does a similar thing, but this one does it from your breath and what your body's kicking off in that deal. And then high-resolution thermography. We could tell from sports, like if you've pulled a hamstring or if you have a hot spot or a trigger point through this high-resolution thermography. We can also do high-resolution breast thermography where we can find breast cancers 3 to 5 years before a mammogram will see it. We've already caught a number of them. We'd send them for the mammogram. They couldn't see it. They'd find it in an ultrasound, barely, or we'd do an MR, an MRI, and we'd actually find it. Still, like in Europe, they've essentially outlawed mammograms, and they only do thermograms. But in America, we're so heavily vested with mammograms that that is still the tried and true. But we all understand that's still radiation at the end of the day, and we're not necessarily about that. One of the tools I use for education, which I'm going to skip into here in a second, is this 3DRX body imaging. It checks spinal segments. We can look at shoulders, knees, upper cervicals, cranial, and posture. And what I wanted to kind of do is I'm going to show a couple things, but if anybody's really interested, I can pull it up right in front of you, and you guys can see what it looks like as it's going on. I can actually show how the disc can degenerate and how it kind of goes through that whole kind of progress. And go through there, and you'll see the animation. So it actually compresses and degenerates, and you can see how it actually messes with the nerve all through that whole little segment right there. And you go to the next one down, and you can see the bulging disc kind of theory on that. And we'll expand this so it goes through a couple things. But there's what happens. It compresses the disc, pinches on the nerve. If anybody really wanted to know what it looks like, that's what people are talking about when they talk about a disc bulge. This is the compressive forces. You know, my X game kids, I don't care what age you are, this happens all the time. You hit a bump wrong, you're on a dirt bike or any type of gear, then that creates degeneration, and then that's what messes with the nerve as the nerve comes out. That's essentially chiropractic 101. You know, and that's what we really work with the most on that aspect. I'll skip ahead. This talks about dermatomes, shows you how each nerve goes through that whole kind of level and goes through all your organs. We'll pull it down a little bit. And I can go into anything, like we'll go into lumbar curve here. And it'll show how scoliosis and things will degenerate over time, and it actually creates that compression. You know, this new animation is a great way to educate people, because I believe that if you understand what's going on with you, you're going to understand why it's going in your body. This talks about piriformis syndrome. People hear about it, but they don't understand what it is. That muscle lights up, boom, sciatica, down your legs. I mean, how many people know somebody or had sciatica? Most everybody knows or has had somebody with sciatica, and that's what it's created from. So obviously we approach this from a chiropractic standpoint, we approach it from a decompression standpoint, we approach it from a muscle tissue standpoint, acupuncture to get the nerve working. This shows how a vertebrae shifts out of place, nails the nerves, goes down into the body. So even when I show this to my medical doctors, when I speak at conferences, they can actually see, they're like, oh, well, yeah, of course, bone out of place, pinches nerve, creates a problem. Even though in the normal world, they're like, well, we better still go in and fuse it. We better go in and actually, you know, put some metal in there, lock it down, or we should at least go in and carve the disc out. You know, in that theory, the biggest problem is when they carve the disc out, yeah, you get pain relief, but within a year or two, typically that disc re-bulges or re-pushes out. There again, how many people know that had one, they got multiples, right? So that's the kind of deal there. Actually, I'll show this neck one really quick. This one's pretty good. But here you can see the compression again. So you can kind of see how all the organs are run by all the nerves in your whole body. So you got to realize that's the whole premise of chiropractic. even things like biosync and things like that. Those are the things that get everything communicating together to get it all working together versus compartmentalizing things. Oh, it's your kidneys and it's just your kidney. Well, why is the kidney going bad and what's creating the kidney problems? You can see all the vasculature that we have, and when you have a subluxation in your upper neck, that affects everything down the whole body, and it goes through the whole thing. So all chiropractors always should work on C1, C2. C1 and C2 are the most important ones in the whole body. Same thing, the vasculature, getting the blood flow of the brain that shows the neurology that goes down into the spinal cord and all the way down through the whole body. Creates a great kind of graphic of how you actually see the cascade effect of something wrong up here creates lots of problems everywhere else. This shows how it affects one side of the body and not the other. So it goes through both of those aspects and kind of creates that kind of cascade effect, we call it, through the whole body, where it can create organ problems, knee problems, ankle problems, even though it's just your upper neck. And I know that's a far reach for a lot of people to understand or to grasp, but that's the primary premise that we're really talking about in that aspect. So this shows ACL. I won't explain it because we'll go through a couple of these. This shows when you get that shearing action, boom, there goes the tear, and a lot of times this will recoil and pull up into the knee. So you can see how fragile that system is and how easily it's blown. Myself particularly, I don't have an ACL on my left knee. Haven't since I was about 17. I still ski, dirt bike, snowboard, water ski all summer long competitively. And that's really keeping yourself strong and stable so you don't have to have an ACL kind of replaced in this. This talks about the patellar kind of ITB band syndrome outside the legs that a lot of people understand. And a lot of people know about meniscus stuff here. We'll go through that. So you can see how it actually creates this compression. It'll peel away a couple layers. And you'll see these little meniscus in here. And those are the circles. You can't see that great on here. You can see the circle, and that's where you get little tears or impingements that come through the meniscus. Certainly need to get those cleaned up a lot of times, and certainly not too aggressively cleaned up. You know, you think about the 70s. How many people just got their knee just carved open and just taken everything out? Oh, you don't need that thing anymore. Boom, it's gone. Well, everybody that had that done now has a knee replacement at this point, if they're still cruising right along and they're still on the hill. So that's a big thing that people need to know is, man, that's fragile territory. So most of the conservatives, like Stedman, that's how he became famous among the Olympic world, is because he was very conservative. He took out very little. He put them back to action right away. He got them moving, and he created motion in that deal. And so that shows a lot of these different aspects, and it's a pretty cool way to actually educate people there again. Top 5 breakthrough products this year or in the last 3 or 4 year cycle. One of them is ASEA. It's a molecular science. I'll leave this slide up at the very end of the deal so you can write down the website so you don't have to worry about it. But these are all education websites as well. ASEA is a new molecular technology that they've come out with. I would say this is the #1 breakthrough in the last 10-year cycle, in medicine especially, because now you know how to stimulate your own stem cells to start producing brand new stem cells that are brand new from your DNA and your RNA. And what that essentially means is as we age, when we're a baby, we're producing these cells, and they're going on all the time, and they're straight out from what the copy's supposed to be. But as we age, they start to degenerate, and sun damage messes with our skin, and all the things we ingest and the things we do start to actually degenerate how our cells replicate. They replicate by copying the last cell that was going on. And so what the deal is making sure that that cell starts to produce brand new cells again from their original copy, not the old copy. So ASEA is essentially triggering, and it has nothing to do with nutrition. It tricks the body as in saying, all right, start producing original copies. We think about photocopies. You know, if you want a really good photocopy, you're going to take it off your master original, which is your RNA and your DNA. So that's what that does, is it teaches the body to start coming off of that RNA and DNA kind of aspect. Protandim is a high-level antioxidant. It helps your body produce your own antioxidants versus we take antioxidants. Well, that's a 1-to-1 ratio. This does more like 500 times your own antioxidants and makes your body produce its own antioxidants. Hence, that's why we do the testing, and then we test again, and we test again, and we show how much we can get your antioxidant level lowered. So that's our end goal, is how long can we live and how good can we live, right? And that's really what that's about. Nerium is a skincare thing. Friday night at the St. Regis from 6 to 8, we're going to be doing a little party over there talking about that one. That's going to be showcased. That one's from the Nerium oleander plant, And what that one does, MD Anderson was doing research for anti-cancer on it, and then they found out that it actually started working much better for skin and for skin cancers, and now they found that it actually tightens up collagen, takes wrinkles back, it takes the brown spots out of your skin. Pretty amazing stuff. Gia, we're going to be showing a quick video on that one. That one talks about, a lot of your energy basis, like cell phone guards. We all understand cell phones probably aren't so good for us. Well, there's little guards you can put on that actually lessen the wavelength, or they break down the wavelength that actually is right next to your head. Even if you're using a Bluetooth, that's still the deal. Their big product is actually called Gia Eye Water, and eye water is something which I'm going to play a quick, like, minute-and-a-half video that you'll be able to see. Is something that actually shows that they can make the linear chain of water, H2O, back in a linear chain, just like it comes out of a spring. You have to realize that water is very hostily driven. It goes through pipes, it's been filtered, it's been driven all around the planet, used multiple times, and anything in nature goes into a cluster form. When it's in a cluster form, it doesn't go into your cells as well. That's why you drink and drink and drink, and maybe you just pee it straight out, and you never really rehydrate. Is because it's not going directly into the cell, and you're not hydrating your cells themselves as well as they could be. The video will show that quite nicely. Body Balance has been around for a long time, but still a tried and true deal. They harvest it from the ocean, sea plankton, ultra trace minerals that actually come from the icebergs that they calve off up by Alaska. And what this ultra trace minerals, most of our farmlands have been taken, and farmed so long and trying to put minerals back in that most of these ultra trace minerals are gone. Not our normal minerals like calcium and all these different things that we know about. They're ultra trace minerals that actually are, pretty much depleted from our foods. So this shows what the products look like. You have Nerium. This is the eye water that shows the little cell clusters, how it goes in. ASEA, Body Balance, Protein, or excuse me, Synergy is actually something for your veins and arteries, and this is the product that actually starts to get your veins and arteries flexible again. Protanum is actually the antioxidant, and they have a skin antioxidant as well. There again, something as simple as water, just refining your water. It has nothing to do with filtering it, but it actually has everything to do with making it more acceptable to the body. We still, would love it to be filtered, RO'd, all that kind of stuff. But this really goes through. This guy won the Nobel for this whole deal. And they call it, it's for optimal hydration. And hydration, we all understand, especially living in the mountains, is a big deal. This is the system right there. It just goes over a little jar. You activate it. It takes 20 minutes. And then you put that in your fridge. It'll last for, 20, 30 days, probably longer. But, you try to get it, obviously it should be gone in a day or two. They make different skincare products and different nutrient-based products that go into the deal. They can see this under a microscope. They can prove it. It's been proven. There's been tons of research studies that have been done on it. It's an unbelievable deal. Many of these new companies that are coming out are in that kind of multi-level form, which is a turn off to many people. But most of these companies are just smart now. They know just roll it out in that and make people sell it versus spending millions of dollars for marketing for it. That's a big part of the deal. So that kind of gives you an insight to a new version of not just nutrition, but how you can make water more acceptable to your body and how you can kind of make it more propagative in your own system. So kind of a fun thing that we go through and understand. And I have information out there. I have Laney, who's one of the people that actually does most of it. I just, I'm into it because it's an awesome, healthy product. But, it's one of the latest and greatest, and it's only been out a couple years. So most people don't even understand what it is. So we all know about the iceberg theory, What you don't know is really what the deals are that are kind of going on with the body. It is certainly the premise of chiropractic. It's all the things that aren't seen and are the deal. And one of the jokes that I do with a lot of my Aspen people and people from Hollywood, we'll call it, are like, if your spine was on your face, you'd take better care of it, right? So it's one of those deals that, we all are cosmetic and all that stuff, but our spine and our organs are run by our nervous system. Our brain and our nerves run everything. So realize that that's a big part of the deal. And ASEA talks about this as well, that we kind of break this out. One of the first and only ASEA products is called redox signaling. This is the one I was talking about where it actually triggers your messenger RNA, your messenger DNA to start to get more information to your body. One of the fastest growing areas of science. When you Google it, there's, I think it says 300-some thousand things pop up on redox signaling because it's been going on in science forever. The medical world and the pharmacological world has been trying to get a hold of it for quite a while. This company figured out how to actually do it. We live and die at a cellular level. When our cells are healthy, we are healthy. The quality of life is determined by our healthy cells, right? It has to start at a cellular basis. So what is a healthy cell? One is you got to have cellular protection, detection. It has to detect something's wrong with the cell, and then it has to show that it's going to fix it, and then it's going to repair it and replace it. Redox signaling molecules are critical for cellular healing process. One of the coolest things about this product is they've actually taken Olympic athletes and they actually make them drink this stuff for like a month, and they will get a 12% increase in their VO2 max. And those people that know what a VO2 max is, it's how much you can breathe and how well you can assimilate oxygen into the body. That's like putting a supercharger on a car. You already have an Olympic athlete, and then you give them that, they actually supercharge, so then they really get an advantage. The reason why is because this is a big bag of cells, which is sodium chloride, which is what it is. It's just this bottle is sodium chloride with the molecules held in it, which is IV solution essentially. And that's going to kick off energy, or ATP, and it's going to kick off two cells, a redox signal 1 and a redox signal 2. One goes off and actually starts to repair cells. The other one goes off and starts to make new cells. So our body's doing this millions and trillions of times every day. So they've figured out how to hold that redox molecule that makes new ones in a bottle, essentially, that's going to start kicking those new cells off. So they discovered that these redox signaling molecules obviously foundational in nutritional health. They're antioxidant activators because they signal it. It increases your antioxidant level by 500%, as I mentioned earlier. Just like the light bulb activates, it turns on. You have to have the energy to make it happen. Without these, those antioxidants are really useless. So all these millions of dollars that we spend and all this stuff that we put through our body to actually do that, it's not as good as it is. It's a 1-to-1 ratio versus 500-to-1. We all want to have that better advantage. Your body is the most complicated communication network on earth, not the cellular network, not the web. It is still one of the most complicated deals. Cellular communication talks about redox signaling molecules, allowing your cells to communicate with the message, health and healing with clarity. Just like a cell phone, if you have a little bit of a signal right there, what the deal is maybe if you got a fire or a problem, you're maybe not getting through to the fire station or the emergency, but man, once you start to actually get it a little bit more, boom, then they get the signal, then they can show up. But if you're not getting the signal to your cells, they're not duplicating the right way, they're not going to replicate and kind of make amends with your body. And that's why, that's the number one thing with aging, is it doesn't do it as well over time. So the big thing is these saltwater kind of molecules, we'll call it. And then it's heavily patented process that they run it through, which splits apart and rearranges the molecules, and then they stabilize it and get it in the bottle. I think it's reactive for about 180 days, believe it or not, and that's how long it can stay. But the bottle, you should really drink it within about a month to a few weeks. Here's the baby analogy. Kind of goes through as we age. We're at 100% here, down to 10% when we're 80, 90 years old. So that redoing of cells for our skin, for our organs, for all of our tissues gets less and less all the time. So you go through every second of every day, poisons, toxins, bacteria. I mean, we're under stuff all the time. So, most people are like, wow, you've never had an antibiotic. How's that possible? I work on hundreds of people a week, and I'm around people from all around the world coughing in my face. How do I never get sick? It's because of that cellular ability to fight it off. Why do we typically not get sick when we're younger and we start getting sicker as we get older is mainly because of that one aspect. But it's really about balance. Like I've talked about a couple times, the balanced approach to health is this balance between those two aspects. Once thought impossible, obviously they're starting to get it more efficient. It's really a big game changer, and it's one of the most breakthroughs in our lifetime. So kind of a cool thing. Certainly, I'm not trying to do a sales pitch. I'm just trying to educate. You guys can read about it on those websites. You can do your own due diligence. You can go out and Google it and do all kinds of stuff and figure it out for yourself, and that's really one big thing. My big deal is obviously about education and empowerment. The more I become educated, the more empowered I get, the more logical things get, the more educated I get people, the better it can be. I talk about FCB and your PSI, your faith, confidence, and belief in your products, services, and ideas. This is where it comes to kind of the business luncheon part of the whole thing. Is obviously you have to have faith, confidence, and belief in what you do, how you do it, what you're selling. Otherwise, why are you even doing it? I'd say there's a greater part of America that doesn't have that going on in our government, in our situation, in our financial status, in what we're doing healthcare-wise, all of these things. You have to have these to be successful in what you do in your business. So it's one of my primary kind of fundamentals that I live by. Obviously, spirituality is a big part of it. Certainly doesn't have to have anything to do with religion, but spirituality is a big part of the whole thing. You got to have belief in whatever that is. You have to have a strong spirit. How many of us understand, when people lose their will to live, they're pretty much done. It ends quick. But when they have a strong spirit, man, they keep fighting. They keep chugging along. How many athletes keep going because their spirit is so strong? I think that's a big deal. There again, FCB and your PSI. I love that statement. One of my mentors taught it to me, and it really goes down to SHH, creates success, health, and happiness. Isn't that kind of everything that we really want to go through? And then it's come from Buddha. I learned it from an Olympic wheelchair guy. What do we need to be happy in our life? Someone or something to love, something you love to do, and some time to look forward to, something to hope for, something to move forward to. If you really boil it down, man, that really nails it. Those are the three things we're all looking for. And if you have to keep those, and if you're missing, most people out there, they don't nail all three of those. They got one, maybe they don't have the other. It's tough to get all three of those lined up. I definitely feel like I'm always in constant flux trying to keep those going. And that's why it's always good to have a vacation or seeing a friend or doing something that's going to be kind of bringing you out and moving forward. Maybe it's an educational type thing. We've all heard Carpe Diem, but I actually just checked out the Wikipedia of it, putting as little trust in the possibility of the future. And the ode says, in the future is unforeseen, and then instead one should scale back one's hopes for the brief future and drink one's wine, right? So kind of a funny thing. I didn't realize it was going to be all that. But what the deal is realize it's day by day. It sees the day, right? Living day by day is what we really got to kind of hold on to and really understand. And what does that have to do with healthcare? That has everything to do with healthcare. That's what our essence is. Otherwise, why are we really here? I always talk about power of relationships. Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich, one of my favorites. He has a term in there. It is the inherent desire of man to please woman, which gives woman the power to make or break the man. I've always thought that's a pretty awesome phrase because it's so true. Mainly because take women out of their lives and the great wealth would be useless to most men, right? Because that's really what drives them on that whole deal. So kind of a fun thing, it's obviously a little bit of a sidetrack, but kind of a classic thing. That's why I always love Dee, and she's always stood by me through all the tried and true things we've been through with ups and downs with the clinics and things like that, but pretty awesome deal. And last, one of our chiefs, we just had the chiefs here again over New Year's. We did a big deal. But what are the 4 things you can never get back or take away? The sped arrow. Once you let go of that arrow, whether it's energetic or it's a real arrow, you can't take that back. That's a shot arrow. The spoken word, everybody talks about written contracts and all that stuff, but man, when the spoken word, when you tell something to somebody, they remember it, man, they hold to it. You told me this was the deal, and they're going to remember it. I think that's so wise. Then the lost opportunity is a huge one in business and in life. How many times did you see one thing and you're like, oh, I'll get that later. And then you never see it again. You're in China and you're like, oh, I'll get that some other time. You never see it again. How many times that person said, well, here's an opportunity, let's do it. Oh, I'll do that later. I'll do that in a month. Or I'll do that in a year. Never happens, right? And then obviously the past. That's another big one that never really is taken away, and you can't get it back. So those are always great ones to kind of memorize and understand, and I think they're so wise. These are the youth chiefs. Their whole family comes over. They come up for a ceremony up here in Aspen, but they stay at our place. And you remember when wasn't snowing over Christmas and New Year's, and before they left, they're like, hey, can we do anything for you guys? You're always so good to us, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, you're leaving. Let's just do a snow dance or something, man. We need snow really bad. And so we did the whole deal. It was pretty classic. Obviously, 5 days later, it snowed, right? Because he said 4 to 5 days, it'll happen. So whether it was happenstance or whatever, thanks for bringing some snow on that one, right? So that's kind of the conclusion, back to success, health, and happiness. This is the ASEA website. My Life Advantage is Pro Tandem, Nerium. Geo Wellness is the water. My Life Work is Body Balance. My Remedy Shop's where you can go and kind of look at stuff and become educated, shop around. There's all natural goods. I've kind of made everything very wholesome, we'll call it, on there. And then Wynn Health Institute, I'm located here on Main Street, 400 West Main, in Basalt, right on Main Street, in the old Vector Bank building, and then down in Glenwood as well. So I'm running up and down the valley, and I got a team of doctors and therapists and all that stuff. So that kind of concludes what I want to do lecture-wise, and I'll certainly open it up to any questions.